Good evening and a very warm welcome to another episode of the Pint-Sized Preview. Finally, a win to talk about this week, so it's going to be a little bit more positive on tonight's show. We will also mention the stalemate at Orient. Richard Kone is our newest wanderer. We'll have a good old chat about him as well, and we'll discuss some football-related New Year's resolutions. Let's waste no time in bringing the guests in this evening. But before we do that, I'm going to show off a late Christmas present because I never show off what I'm drinking. I've got a strawberry and lime, a cheap one from Aldi. And we've also got a Wickham Way Pint-Sized Preview beer stein. I'm not sure if you can see it in the light, but I thought I'd show that off before we get going. Cider and a stein. Let's bring in our guest tonight. Aaron, good evening. How are you, mate?
Evening, mate. I'm all good. You?
I'm not so bad, mate. What is it you're drinking tonight?
I've got a bottle of Moretti tonight.
So your New Year's resolution wasn't to stop drinking?
It may have been, but if it was, it lasted minutes at most.
Excellent. Let's go next down the queue. Let's bring in Chris. Evening, mate.
Evening, George. Well?
I'm not bad, mate. How are you?
Very well. Happy New Year to you both.
Happy New Year, Chris. Are you joining us with a drink tonight?
I am. I've got a Ruby Red Ale tonight, which is from the Sainsbury's Taste of Difference range. It's very nice.
Solid choice. Something a bit different as well. Let's move on to Kyle. Good evening, mate.
Evening, mate. All right.
How are you doing?
Happy New Year, boys. Yeah, not bad.
Change of scenery for you tonight as well.
Yeah, moving around. Yeah.
It's got
Back
a shirt
in,
on
well.
as well, hasn't it? That's not for the occasion.
Well, it was from.
He's got his Princess Leia.
Yeah, no. Yeah, doing a bit of work today, and for me, for once,
I was going to say
it's not alcohol.
What is it you got in that the beer glass?
It's just tonic water.
Just tonic.
No
water.
Gin.
No
Depressing,
just
right?
Tonic water. Oh, interesting choice. Interesting choice. And last but not least, let's bring in Jaden. Evening, mate.
Evening. How is everyone?
Yeah,
Very well. Yourself?
Yeah, very good. Happy New Year, all.
Happy
New Year to you.
Happy New Year, mate.
I'm on the Thatcher's Haze tonight because I just raided the fridge basically, and that was the only thing that left. New Year's Eve hit hard, so I was a bit out of alcohol, so I just ran downstairs and grabbed the first thing that was in sight, and that happened to be Thatcher's Haze, so I can't really complain.
Yeah, some good choices all around tonight. Right, I mean, let's just waste no time in getting into it then. We'll start off by discussing the draw at Orient. But before we actually chat about the game and how drab it was, we'll have a chat about the day out because it seems that you all really enjoyed it. Let's go to you first, Aaron. How much of it do you actually remember?
To be fair, I remember all of it until we got to whatever the pub was near the ground where Kyle bought what tasted like petrol, and then I think Jaden poured it in a pint, and it all went very, very wrong. And yeah, I don't remember a thing of the game.
That's just about. How about you, Chris? I know you don't, behave like these animals, but
No, not at all.
Oh, he was off the fucking leash that night.
No, I would say anything over 6 o'clock was probably quite a haze, to be honest. My memory's a little bit blurry after that point. I think there's a big chunk of my life missing from 6 o'clock to about 10 o'clock the next day. So yeah, brilliant day. It was great to meet all of you and some of the other people, and DJ was there. But it was really good. It was a brilliant night.
Your thoughts as well, Jaden. You sort of got on it quite late, but in the end, caught everyone up, didn't you?
Yeah, I caught everyone up. So my parents came up, and I got back to the hotel, had a curry, and I was like, I can't be asked to sit here for another 2.5 hours, so I'm just going to go out. So I headed to Liverpool Street. It got off to a good start with Dharma and the Wickham Zone getting ID taken on for the team. But yeah, no, it was a really good night. I really enjoyed it. I actually do remember quite a bit. Especially Aaron saying, "You're going to fucking die if we score," getting launched down them stairs. Yeah, no, it was honestly such a good night, and it's great to meet everyone. It really felt just probably best away day I've ever done. Honestly, it was so much fun.
Mm-hmm. And last but not least, Kyle, your thoughts on the day as a whole?
Well, I was a late addition because I wasn't going to go. My mate offered me up a spare for Charlton versus Rovers, and I thought, oh, I'll go to that because I know it's going to be a load of shit if I go. And I thought it got to like 2 o'clock, and I went, do you know what? Fuck it, I'm just going. And I was like, I'll take it easy on the drinking, and I got on the train, and then I turboed about 5 or 6 vodka and cokes, and then by the time I got to Liverpool Street, and by the time we left to go on the tube, which is probably one of the funniest trips I think I've ever done to a football ground, going down. Tom outside banging his drum when he got booted out for knocking a glass off the table, and then I don't know what was it.
Even him, he knocked the glass off.
I don't know, what was there, like 60 of us going through Liverpool Street Station with Tom playing that drum, singing, and yeah, then we got in that random Polish pub or bar, didn't we? There's a lot of couples trying to enjoy their dinner, and we all stormed through the doors, like singing "Blue Army." Yeah, it was honestly, it was such a good night. The game was fucking terrible, but yeah, it was such a good away day.
I just remember you having that fight when the pub as I walked past, and all of a sudden you all sprinted down the road to catch me up.
When was that?
The Wickham Way, I'm a big fan of your content. And Dharma was next to me.
The content
I think someone shouted.
Deliver.
I think someone shouted at me. They were like, "Hey George, there's a fucking cunt. Let's go and get him." And that's all I remembered after that. I don't remember anything after getting to the ground.
Oh dear me. I mean, let's have a quick chat about the game then, because I feel like we need to. You can't talk about the positives without talking about the negatives. Let's come to you first, and Aaron. I mean, as much as you can remember, absolute pile of shit.
Yeah, I don't remember much. I spent most of the time, I think, trying to wind up a corner of Orient fans who were about 12, and jumping around and trying not to knock people down the stairs and not get myself thrown out for standing on seats and in the wrong place. Yeah, I can't remember it. I remember Farino coming on, actually.
Is that because the booing woke you up?
Yeah, pretty much. That was because I'd had some of DJ's nachos by that point, so I'd sobered up a little bit.
Oh, yeah, because Ollie remembers that too, doesn't he, Aaron?
Yeah. He just stood in front. I was like, there's dinner sorted.
Another game, Chris, where Wickham just didn't really like scoring, no matter how long they were going to be on the pitch for.
No. To be honest, George, my memory of the match is pretty hazy. So I'm going to take your word from it. It wasn't a great performance, was it? The one thing I would say about it, though, and if you take like the 4 matches, and I'm going to talk about Bristol Rovers in a bit, but the 2 particularly previous, so the Exeter match and the Port Vale match, so those 3 games have all ended with like a negative reaction from the fans. And my feeling coming out after the game was there's a bit of a disconnect really between the result and the reaction as well. And the bit that kind of I wasn't quite sure about is actually where the booing has taken place, what actually the booing's for. So if it's like for the result, then look at a 0-0 draw away from home against like any side, in this division is a decent result. Performance was appalling, but if you're booing the performance, then the Port Vale one doesn't make sense, because actually that was a fairly decent performance. Result wasn't great as well. So I mean, I came out of the game really feeling quite upset, and it was more because of the reaction towards it. It wasn't great. Look, 0-0 flattered both sides. We weren't brilliant, but then I think realistically, when you've got matches that are so, like squashed together, the expectation to put in, a decent performance and to see a decent game of football, really, I think is just a bit ridiculous, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Let's come to you then, Jaden, following on from that then. We've mentioned Wickham never really looking like scoring, but actually Leighton Orient didn't offer too much either. And actually a pretty good defensive display from Wickham.
Yeah, I think it was pretty much, you could tell it's going to be like a nailed-on 0-0 from the first 10 minutes. A lot of, from what I remember, obviously, a lot of hoofball to Dale Taylor, which I didn't particularly understand, because that's just not his game at all, really, is it? And like you said, defensive performance was good. I thought Taff had a very good game. Max had a decent game, made a few good stops towards the end. And yeah, the reaction obviously from some of the fans wasn't particularly. It wasn't nice to see because it was a dire performance. Don't get me wrong, but an away point is an away point. They're in and around us in the table. We take what we can get. It's better than a loss, and we were on a bit of a. We'd just come off the back of the exit result, which was very poor. So to get a point on the boards at a place like Orient is fairly decent. But yeah, there were a lot of things to work on going forward, but at least we got the reassurance that our defence was fairly solid, and Max seems back to his best.
Mm-hmm. Let's sort of come to you, Carl, on the negativity sort of surrounding the club. Certainly on that evening, it's not so bad anymore after the win. We sort of discussed in the group chat that the booing probably unjustified, but can you understand the negativity following on from the game and some of the in-game choices?
I mean, I guess the difficult thing is as fans is that you're on a run where you haven't won in 12. It's really frustrating. I mean, I can understand sometimes when the boos come out of frustration, but some of the comments that I heard in that stand directed towards Bloomfield, I just thought, won't mince my words, I just thought it was fucking disgusting, to be honest with you. The man doesn't deserve that level of treatment, not for someone that's been there for 20 years. And I know there's the usual suspects we get online that have just seemed to have it in for him constantly. And I'm not even going to stand here and defend, a lot of the performances. The Exeter game I was very frustrated with, but I was more frustrated with after the game that Bloomfield went straight down the tunnel and over to the fans to show the appreciation for them travelling all that way. Okay, look, not for me. It was only an hour and a half down the road, but it's not. I can understand why fans are frustrated, because we all are, but there's no need for some of those comments that were directed towards Bloomfield at all. Absolutely none. The guy is Wickham through and through. He will understand more than anyone else what we're all going through as fans, how we all feel, how frustrated we are. And you have to think how deeply that cuts him as a person as well. To have fans that he's been with that have supported him for 20 years turning on him like that and giving some of that vitriol towards him. It's just fucking disgraceful. I have to be honest with you. I don't want to see that at all. You're well entitled to vent your frustration at a performance with a few boos. That's fine. But some of the things and we want Ainsworth back and all this shit, it's just, honestly, it's embarrassing. It's fucking embarrassing.
It's pathetic, isn't it? I mean, it wasn't that long ago we recorded a special about QPR where we all basically derided their fans for the way in which they acted and acted towards Ainsworth as well. And actually, I think what we've shown in this situation, that there is a portion of our fans who are no better and no different. You can have your opinion on the manager and your opinion on whether or not he's the right person to be in or not to be in the job and particular decisions he's making. But I think when that criticism and abuse boils over and starts to get personal, and forgets everything that he has done, and actually, regardless if he's done it or not, nobody goes into a job wanting to do a bad job as well. Sometimes you just come up against another team or other teams in the division who are just better, and we've been on this really poor run of form as well. But regardless of the fact if he sees it on social media or not, he's got a family, he's a son, he's a husband, he's a father. It's not beyond the realms of possibility that there will be people connected to him won't have seen those comments as well. They're going to be affected as well. So actually, look, it is pathetic as well. Our job as fans is to support the team and support the manager. And again, regardless of what we think of him as well, we want the team to win, and the team's more likely to win if we actually support the team instead of acting in the way in which some of our fan base at the moment seem to think it is okay to act. And actually, frankly, is just embarrassing.
Some of the comments that I've seen on Twitter after the game, and we know the same band of brothers. I don't even have to mention their name, saying that he was nothing but a fucking bang average player, and I'm just reading it going, who the fuck are you? Honestly, who the fuck are you to say he was a bang average player? Did you even watch him? It was an absolute, like, okay, Bloomfield, for, you know, he was the epitome of what our football club is all about. It doesn't matter how good you are, you can be probably, like, you might be a 6 out of 10 player, but you give it 8 or 9 every week. And that's what Bloomfield was for us. That epitomizes everything that we are as a football club, that man. In terms of how he conducts himself, the performances that he put in, you know, I'm so proud to have him as a representative as our football club and as our manager. And yes, the performances haven't been good. And yes, there definitely are questions to be asked over some of the decisions. That doesn't mean that he's immune from that criticism at all. I'm not saying that. But show the man some fucking respect, for Christ's sake. You know, he's trying his best. He's a real manager. It's not a... We all knew... I mean, I guess all of us knew here that it was going to be a journey.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a process that we would go through, and we knew that there were going to be some inconsistencies while he learned the job. So, look, just, you know, it doesn't matter what you feel, back the club. Just the club. That's all you have to do every week. Just get behind the team and back the club. And yeah, look, you fully entitled to voice your criticism if you're not happy with how performances are, but no personal abuse. Leave it out.
I think it is fair to say, though, that you know, for the majority of that match, actually, the whole of the Wycombe contingent there did get behind the team for the majority of it as well. Yeah, and in terms of the way the atmosphere, it was way up there as well, and it was brilliant to be part of as well.
I mean, one
and
of the Orient fans said it'd be one of the best fans to visit this season. But, you know, full time. I mean, they were really up. Yeah. I don't want to go into more. I've said what I need to say. It's, you know, if you're one of those people, like, sorry, but have a fucking word with yourself. Sort yourself out. Don't turn up at the club if that's what you want to do every week.
Let's move on to something slightly more positive then. A first league win since October, a first home win since September. Aaron, you've got to really question where the performance and the result of that came from, because for the last, nearly 3 months, it's been drab, and not just a win, but a really, really good performance.
Yeah, just where's that I don't know, not that team, but that kind of effort and the attacking placement that we saw, where's it been for the past few months? Like, there wasn't really anything massively different. The formation was slightly different, but it wasn't like we suddenly brought in someone who's kind of got hold of the game and done something amazing. It was mostly players that we've had in the last at least 4 or 5 games that haven't turned up that just suddenly did. Like, Vokes looked a different player. He looked class on Monday, whatever it was. I know he's obviously had his injury problems. I thought Dale Taylor, probably one of his better games. He didn't score, but I thought he played well. Perhaps, yeah, I guess we got to look at the formation a little bit, and that's where the change is. But hopefully it's not a fluke and not a one-off kind of thing, and hopefully we can kind of build on it. I think that's the important thing now. If we go to Burton and lose, it doesn't really count for much, does it? 1 win in 14 or whatever. We need to go and build on that now.
Yeah, and like Aaron said, Chris, that's got to be the foundation now for the next few weeks, hasn't it? Definitely.
I mean, and that's what it is. It's a building block, isn't it? And after what has been a tough run of games, it's the first of those one, as Aaron quite rightly said. You know, it means very little if we don't then go on and replicate it with a decent result against Burton at the weekend. What kind of puzzled me a little bit about the game, I suppose, is that it was, as much as the team was similar and the formation was similar, it was a very different performance to what I think we've been used to. And it was almost going back to how things were, say, like a year ago as well. Looking at the possession stats, we were way down on what we normally were. Performance was good, but we're about 34%, possession across the whole of the game. And I know a little bit of that is going to be heavily influenced by the sending off in the second half, which again, in a strange way, seemed to improve the performance as well. I think it might be one of those things that we look back in a couple of weeks or months' time as well, being a pivotal moment in Bloomfield's reign as manager here, if things turn around in the way that we all hope. Because I think what it enabled the team to do is become more solid and more solidified in their shape as well, which made it a lot harder for Bristol Rovers to break it down as well. And then we had the ability to pounce, and be ruthless at the times when we needed to be, by the goalkeeper right near the end. Oh, but really positive. Lots to be encouraged about. Lots of good performances all over the pitch. Again, like he did against Lincoln. So I believe Tafazoli had another really good game at the back. I thought Joe Lowe played really well at the back. Striek, for me, was the man of the match. Freddie Potts, though, was, again, different class. And, such a pleasure to have, joy to watch him in the team as well. Sam Vokes, again, it was going back to the kind of performance we've seen in the past. And I think what was really pleasing as well is I know there's been a lot of detractors towards Sam Vokes as well, which I think it was incredibly harsh, but it was just playing to his strengths. And that's the biggest thing from the performance, actually, not just him. It just seemed to make sense playing towards everybody's strengths. And it just made sense.
Jayden, there's been a few question marks in recent weeks, hasn't there, about the application and sort of the fight in the team. Whilst the first half was very, very good technically, we saw sort of the old Wickham after the sending off, and we really had to dig in and see the game out in the end.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it was a good first half. We looked more likely the team to score and the team to go on and win it. But it's like we've always spoken about, I think Bloomfield hasn't won a game or something as Wickham manager when his team's gone behind. And I know obviously we were leading at when we got the red card, but it does sort of show that there is a fighting spirit in this team, despite, never coming from behind. So it's definitely good to see. And I just think, like we've already said before, it just looked completely different. The pressing was there. Everything was really good. McCleary caught my eye quite a bit, how much he was tracking back, putting pressure on the Bristol Rovers midfield, sort of winning the ball back. And then our second goal came from pressure, really, didn't it? Wheeler putting a defender under pressure, getting the shot, winning the corner, and the rest is history. But yeah, we've already said, Tafazoli, fantastic player. I think he's probably been one of the standout last two games, if I'm honest. Striek as well, been pretty solid at the back. And it's an encouraging performance. Do I think we would have gone on to win it by more if we had the 11 men? Absolutely. I think we probably wouldn't have conceded. And one thing I wanted to bring up as well, Freddie Potts, we actually haven't conceded a goal while he's been on the pitch in the last two games, I don't think. So it's really good to see we got sort of like that defensive stability from the midfield as well. See what he adds, like when he wins the ball back, he goes into the 50-50s. He's always like challenging. He looks so good, and really, really hope that Wickham managed to keep hold of him this window, because it would be a big void to fill if we lost him.
Mm-hmm. We've mentioned in recent weeks, Carl, about Wickham maybe needing to go back to basics. If we look at the formation on Monday, it was a box standard 4-4-2. We played to Sam Vokes' strengths, and it worked a treat, didn't it?
Yeah, I think there's an element of that sometimes. I think when probably Bloomfield, with his decision making, you can almost get a little bit too bogged down and overanalyze areas and what he needs to do, and just tinkering a little bit too much with the formation times. And I thought, what's the worst that can happen? Switching back to a 4-2, which I was really pleased to see, because you're going a straight 4-2. You're not pissing about with wing backs. You're just playing a straight up forward midfield. You're really good on the 4-4-2 as well, because then you're bringing someone like GMAC into play. You're bringing Potts into play as well. It allows you to really hit teams hard on the counter down the wing, which you said, Jade, and GMAC did that quite a few times on the break, which was fantastic to see. I didn't see the performance coming at all. I don't think any of us did. I never ever saw that one coming at all. But it was back to the Wickham of old, like you guys said. It's what you want to see. I don't mind us losing games if we go down in that fashion, giving 100% every week and getting stuck in and winning those second balls. And that's something that we haven't done in recent weeks, is win those second balls. We've always been slow to second balls. The other teams always seem to get the second ball to us. But on Saturday, Potts back in, who was just majestic, running past players like they weren't even there. It was frightening how good that lad is. Vokes was immense. Taylor looked great, and I think that was probably down to a straight two up front. Like Vokes there winning the flick-ons, with Taylor's actually got something to run onto. It's not. I'm not saying it's a cut and paste job for every single week 4-4-2, but sometimes I think you just need to go back to basics, and that was clearly a formation that suits that team. So going into Saturday, I would be amazed if we don't see 4-4-2 again, which means it will be like a 3-5-2-1, something like that.
I know you've all sort of picked out a few good players, but let's sort of mention a few more details. Let's come to you first, Darren, and we'll talk about Sam Vokes because a lot of opinions last Friday about Vokes not getting on the pitch. Turns out he was carrying a knock. He was advised not to play. But it's sort of that decision worked in our favour because he was absolutely incredible on Monday.
It did, yeah. And I've even seen a few people kind of say, well, if we'd have known, then maybe we wouldn't have had the reaction. But then
what do we need to know?
Exactly. And if we know he's out
why?
there, then Bristol Rovers...
The opposition knows.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, if that was the reason and they said he wasn't going to play, then fair enough. Maybe question why he was on the bench, but whatever. Yeah, he's had a bit of a weird season, folks. I've seen a lot of calls, people saying he's not the same player and maybe he shouldn't be starting and should be kind of off the bench, but he looked as good as he has been for us in the last couple of seasons on the last game. I think, like we've said, and I think Kyle mentioned it, playing to his strengths a lot more. And maybe if we can carry on, which hopefully we do play how we have been playing on the last game, then we'll carry on playing his strengths and see the best of him.
That's been exactly the issue, though, with him as well. Like I've seen people say about, he's past his best and, he's not the player he was, which actually is just a load of nonsense. I do think it's been the simple fact that we haven't played, he's still, for my mind, one of the strongest aerially in the air in this division as well. And the amount of times actually we don't play to that strength is ridiculous. It's like having a Ferrari and using it to go and do your shopping to Sainsbury's. What's the point? Have him up front. He's a big tall lump. Get the ball in the air. Watch him win it down. Get players around him, who are going to win the second balls. And happy days. And that is effectively what we did on Monday. And it proved to be successful. It's not going to work every game, but not every game is he going to play.
But it wasn't just in the air, was it? He sort of played into his feet and very good with his feet as well.
Yeah.
There was a few times where he took the ball down and turned really quite quickly, which is sort of a nice surprise. Someone else, Jaden, then is Max Stryjek. Sort of dipped in and out of form this season, maybe out of form more often than in form. But certainly on Monday, Friday, and even the trip to Exeter, really, really quite good again.
Yeah, he seems to have got his mojo back, really, didn't he? And it's definitely good to see because his performances were costing us points, and it hadn't happened before. Really, we'd never really seen him put a foot wrong in a Wickham shirt until this season. So it's nice to see him get his sort of confidence back, and he's made some outstanding saves. Like we could have lost Exeter by 2 or 3 goals if it weren't for him. And we probably could have conceded at Orient as well if it weren't for him as well. So, yeah, it's obviously, I think his distribution is still something that needs working on. But I don't ever really see that changing, if I'm honest. It's just his shot-stopping ability is what makes him one of the top keepers in this league. I still firmly believe that. And to see that he's sort of back at his best, it's really good to see because we've looked so good as a defensive unit so far. These last few games that we've switched into the back four, and it's just to get the goalkeeper on form as well, it sort of relieves a little bit of pressure on the defense as well, knowing we got Max behind us. If they have a shot or something from close range, he's known for making those good reaction saves. So it's good to see Max back in form.
Whilst we could sort of go through each of the 11 and talk about them in detail, just a few more. Kyle Bloomfield mentioned after the game that Tafazoli missed a few, got his head down and worked hard. When he's on it, he's absolutely imperious. We saw that on Monday with his goal and sort of his all-round game. But even on Friday in the stalemate, really good performances from him recently.
Oh, when he's fit, he starts every week. That's the problem though with him. He's made of glass. There's no denying it. He's fragile. I think the reason why he probably hasn't got a move to another league higher up because he could play in the Championship if he was fit, but I genuinely don't think that he passed a medical. Honestly, He won't. When he's fit, he has to start. It's as simple as that. You know, you rotate it, don't you, between half starts, probably with Lowe, you would think at centre back, between him and Firmino would be starting every week. I don't really want to see Richard Keogh start a match for the rest of the season unless we're knackered. He's just not the option for me at all. I think he's a great guy to have to come on maybe the last 20 minutes to get a game or something. A bit of now. So, but I think more Keogh brought in, you know, good around young players, good for the development, good to have that experience around. But yeah, I mean, Taff is just, when he's fit, he's fantastic. It's great to see him. But I don't think we've seen him fully fit for God knows how long.
I do think Keogh's a bit of a scapegoat, though, Kyle. Like, you know, his name got mentioned after the Exeter game as well. But definitely wasn't for me a game where he was culpable. All the defence on that day were culpable for the loss as well. You know, there were other issues as well. You know, as a backup centre back, I think he's a decent option. You know, only really the Bolton game is the one that, you know, really, to me, springs to mind where, you know, you could say he was at fault for a goal or whatever. But then it was a game when we were chasing, you know, to get an equaliser late at the end anyway. You know, I'm not saying that he should start.
I wouldn't put it all on Keogh. We're not all on Keogh, but I mean, if you put that Exeter game, for example, we started with JJ and Keogh as centre backs. I mean, I honestly,
but the defence was not the issue in that match. Like defensively, we spoke about it at half time. You know, first half defensively, we were okay. You know, the issues in that match was what we were doing in midfield and what we were doing up front. You know, we were so impotent in that game. Yeah. So, you know, it's easy almost to blame him and almost any that game to suggest that JJ's age as well were the reasons as well. But it wasn't the defence that really was the issue in that match.
Anyway, I'm not going to let you off the hook just yet because you need to talk about the refereeing on Saturday or Monday, whenever it was. I lost count of the days. Talk about the referee again and how good these EFL officials are, mate.
Right, George, what's the next question?
Well, the referee performance was on the agenda.
Bloody hell.
We've been waxing lyrical about him all day. You know, question marks of whether he's going to be here for the rest of the season because he is that good.
Chris is already sweating the mayonnaise out.
Don't
drip it off your forehead, mate.
As I said, I'm trying to avoid mayonnaise talk. Allow me to forget it, please, Kyle.
Oh dear. Aaron, Freddie Potts, just talk to us about him because fantastic on Monday, wasn't he?
Yeah, he's been fantastic pretty much every game he's played for us, I think. And like we were saying earlier, I just really, really hope that West Ham don't either think, do you know what, get him and move somewhere else in the Championship or something like that, because to lose him, we've seen with him out injured, how we've struggled to kind of fill that, and how would we go and fill that? We'd have to bring someone in. I don't think you get someone quite as good as Freddie Potts on a short-term loan at this point.
I mean, it's something to think about, isn't it? Because we're aware that sort of movements in and out this January, and you know, we all agree that he could play at a higher level for the rest of the season, no doubt about it. How would we go about filling that gap, Jaden, if he was to leave this month?
That's one of the ones that I'd honestly just sit back and say I don't know. Like, there's just so many. He's such a rare breed of player, I think, who's very capable defensively, but also very creative. And I think the mix of that in our midfield alongside like a sort of more holding player such as Scowen or Leahy is what we really need. And they're just very, very hard to come by. We'd either end up having to pay money for someone or try and find another loanee as good as Freddie Potts for 6 months, which is going to be near enough impossible, you know. And it's definitely in the back of my mind. I'm worried about it, but I think we'll be okay, hopefully. Because obviously he's just come back from injury, and maybe West Ham would want him to just stay at Wickham. Obviously, he missed 2 or 3 months or so through injury, so they might want him to just gain that back in League One, and then obviously maybe they'll have Championship suitors in the summer. But yeah, it's one of them ones where I honestly couldn't tell you. I don't know who we would replace him with if we lost him, because he's a rare type of player to come across.
Right, let's talk about the refereeing performance then. I'm going to let Kyle take this one then, and then I'm going to let Chris sort of have an argument with him about why he thinks the referee got his decisions right. We won't mention the red card.
I've never said that.
I think the red card was spot on, having watched it back. He's almost taken his face off. But just generally, really quite poor and lost control of the game, didn't he, Kyle?
Well, he lost complete control of it. There was no consistency with the decisions either. I mean, I know some of those like fucking stupid gases were screaming blue murder about Vokes should have had a second booking for when he jumped in on the goalkeeper, which was a cross on a ball that he was fully entitled to go for. So I don't even understand that anyway. But we had one with booking given out for one of the challenges that we had, and then it was the exact same challenge almost a minute later, and there was no booking at all. When he got through on goal, if he'd actually gone down, that would have been a penalty and a sending off, I think. But again, I'm looking at it going, he's given the corner. Really, it should have been a free kick or a penalty, really. I couldn't believe it. Literally couldn't believe it.
It was through.
Yeah, the Wheeler one.
Yeah,
He's actually pulling his chest back.
Absolute
Yeah, it was a penalty, really. You should have given it as a pen, but obviously we got the goal afterwards, and it doesn't matter. But just, again, how many times in the season have we been talking about this, and how many times has Mr. Spratt, Mayo man there, had to tell me that on the whole that, it's a tough job and they do a good job on the whole. Well, shove it up your fucking arse. It's bollocks.
Go on then, Chris. I'll let you clap back.
I haven't got a lot to say to be honest on the game. Oh, shut up, you knob. Aaron and I, we spoke at half time. I actually thought Vokes was very, very lucky to be on the pitch, like being honest as well. At the time it felt like, could easily have gone for the second challenge. And it was one of those games you could sense something was going to happen. You're right, George, the red card, as much as people in the ground disagreed at the time, it was a red card. It was reckless as well. Take your point, Carl, with the Wheeler penalty actually being directly in front of it, it looked like it was one of those that should have been nailed on as well. But again, how many times do we see, not just on Saturday, in any match, that players have to go down to win penalties as well? Had Wheeler gone down, he would have got the penalty. I've got no doubt in my mind on that as well. And yet, pundits, fans criticise players when they dive or when they seem to dive as well. Well, actually, that was the proof on Saturday as well. His honest play actually could effectively have gone against him. We were lucky we scored directly afterwards, but it's one of those situations where it's probably one that needs to be looked at as well. But we've seen it before and we'll see it again.
What about the booking for Bloomfield, which he's adamant that he'd do anything wrong? That was after Scowen got sent off. Bloomfield is absolutely scathing of it all, wasn't he? He's like, I haven't done a thing wrong at all.
No, exactly. And we're, it's one of those situations we almost have to take his word for it, don't we? Without seeing, what the referee's report wrote, what he saw, the fourth official, if they were there as well, what they communicated to the referee, if they did communicate anything as well, and how it would have been perceived like with TV footage, because we haven't seen any of that as well. So we're going to be very much from the side of defending Matt on this as well, and I've got no reason to think what he's saying isn't what he believes as well. But I think it's one of those situations where, unless you see the evidence, it's really difficult for any of us to take our bias out of it and saying that's a wrong or a right call.
So I think we're in agreement then it was a quite poor refereeing performance, although the red card was a spot on, really.
I haven't watched, the real time I saw it, I couldn't believe that he sent him off. I even said it to you, I was like, there is no way that possibly a red, but obviously watched the replay back a few times and I went, okay.
BC Carl, this one thing where I've said before as well, like with referees, I do think sometimes it's the way in which we as fans think the game should be refereed and the way we think the rules should be and the way in which the rules actually are and what they instruct referees to do, because the old adage we'll hear it a lot is if you win the ball, referee won the ball as well. But actually, that isn't necessarily the point. The whole point, and what the rule clearly states, is that if somebody goes in where they are reckless and it endangers somebody else, regardless if they touch the ball or not, it is liable to be a red card as well. And in raising his leg to where he raised it, he does not have control of that and does endanger the opponent as well. So I think it's one of those where we as fans actually, the rules sometimes aren't always as clear as what we think they should be or what they could be as well. I think there's loads of issues with it. There's certain rules I don't particularly like, and I think it makes it harder for us as fans to understand when certain decisions are made.
Well, I think the problem that I've got, by and large, and that's not just, it isn't just isolated to that game, it's everywhere, is, there are constant rule changes that are being updated, and fans have no idea about changes to the rules.
Yeah.
All the time. And that for me is the most frustrating thing. If you understand that a rule's changed and you understand why it's been given, then it's fair. But when it changes, it's communicated to referees and it's communicated to players, I guess. You think it would be, maybe, or managers or whatever. But there are those little things that they change and we're not aware of them. So you can't really understand the decision making.
And that's exactly my point. And that's where I think referees are a bit of a scapegoat as well, for exactly the point you just made.
But they're also cunts, so...
Okay. That feels like a good place to move on from the referee discussion then. Just one more thing on Monday's game then before we move on to other pressing matters. Let's have a chat about the atmosphere very quickly, Aaron. Despite the poor form and everything else, from the first whistle, actually really quite positive, especially in the terrace.
Yeah, we mentioned earlier the Orient game, except the kind of maybe the 3-0 sub and the final whistle, it was probably one of the best away atmospheres we've had in a long, long time. And
well, take 1,000 of Orient as well. I've got to point that out.
Yeah,
I didn't think we'd have 1,000.
With the run we're on Friday night, like between Christmas and New Year, I know we're only down the road when people say like the bigger clubs we would have took in 20,000 or whatever they think they'll take, but it's pretty good. But yeah, and then to go and follow it up after what most people booing and saying we're boring and what's the point and all this kind of stuff, to then go and follow it up with that atmosphere from minute one, fair play. I mean, we've kind of slated some of our fans a little bit and said that maybe they need to grow up a little bit with some of the comments and that, but you can't knock the atmospheres the last two games. I mean, yeah, we've said the crowd numbers have dipped slightly, and whatever reason for that, we can say performances or other things. But the ones that are there, 90%, let's be honest, have been fairly positive, and 90% aren't being idiots and shouting abuse and stuff. So, yeah, fair play, and hopefully we can continue that as we hopefully pick up the performances more.
Mm-hmm. And one last thing that I'll ask you about, Chris. Also important that we sort of condemn some of the chanting in the terrace, because it's all well and good having a laugh with opposition players, but there is a point where it goes too far, and I think it sort of did on Monday afternoon as well.
Yeah, it did. I mean, we were stuck together, weren't we? We did hear the chants as well, and it
started off as just a bit of a chant. Even the original chant at the time, I kind of just sort of looked and was like, say, a bit embarrassing. Like, grow up is point in that. Like, you're a grown adult and you're coming up with that. Come on, have a word. But yeah, then as it kind of went on and they added little bits to it, it did become to a point where it was like, what is wrong with you? What world are you living in where you think that's something you just go out and start shouting at in public? Like,
yeah. And look, I think we were very, we were very quick. Was it 2 years ago? We played MK with some of the abuse, very different kind, I must admit. And then I can remember a couple of years before playing Tranmere and, the abuse for Ryan Alsop, and that match received as well, of a similar-ish kind of a nature as well. And it's one thing, I think, for us as fans to condemn the behaviours of others. But actually, I think it's really important we look at our own house and get our own house in order, first of all, as well. And, I was in there And it was something I spoke about like the other day as well, reflect on that as well. Could I personally, or could we have done more, in the match as well? And it's really hard, I think, in that situation to actually sometimes know what the right thing to do is as well. But I think if we are going to make a change, then I think really, we as fans need to stand up when we hear it within our own support as well, and called it out for what it was as well. And look, when we're 21st century, for God's sake, the whole point is, our football club, we pride ourselves on being an inclusive environment where anybody should feel like free and welcome to express themselves in whatever way they want, whether it be on the pitch or in the terrace as well. And it should be an environment there everyone can come along as well. And there's some of the chance, and it was a small minority, I think that's important to say as well, actually are staying on our club.
Right, I think that's Monday covered, which means we can move on to some more really exciting news. A brand new chairboy is in the building. Very, very warm welcome to Richard Kone. Let's sort of start off by talking about his story generally rather than the football side of it, because Kyle, it is both fascinating and amazing that he now finds himself in the position that he is.
I mean, you just look at it in plain terms. What a story. I mean, really, what a story. From a guy that got kicked out and homeless at 17 for his sexuality to moving over, he played in the Homeless World Cup. He's moved over to the UK, playing at Step 5, had trials with, and then he's made this step up all of a sudden from Step 5, making a jump 7 steps up to League One. I mean, it's just fucking fantastic, isn't it? And it's sort of everything for me is about what this football club is about. When we just talked about inclusivity and we're talking about, it's not the biggest issue or focal point at all, because anyone's sexuality, it's your fucking business. Everyone's business. You do what you want. You do you. You do whoever you want. It's no one's business, man. But I think in terms of that inclusivity, and I think the fact around hype around him pre-season, I've never seen a player that was signed before as a development player, or was meant to be a development player, with this level of buzz before. And just looking at the reel of the guy's goals that he's scoring, he looks some talent. He really does. And I'm I'm immensely proud of the guy himself anyway, because he's really grafted to get to this position. And all I can say is welcome to Wickham, and hope it's the success of many seasons to come, mate.
You're completely right there, Carl. It's like you mentioned about sexuality, mate. It should not be an issue whatsoever as well. And it'd be brilliant if we can one day be in a society where actually it isn't an issue, and within football as well.
It shouldn't be the talking point.
It shouldn't be as well. It shouldn't be, but the fact is there's roughly 5,000 professional footballers in England as well. There is only before him one player, who has come out as being gay out of those 5,000 as well. And when you consider that, 1 in 10 people are considered to be gay within this country as well, those figures don't match up as well. Football is a reflection of society. And I think where it reflects poorly at the moment is that, people actually should feel comfortable and be able to be you, as you've quite rightly mentioned as well. And, in the 21st century football we've got at the moment, there are those, people who act in a way where, people can't come out and act in a way that they should. It'd be great if one day we can get to a stage where actually it isn't an issue and it isn't a story. At the moment it is. And that's where, the reason why he is being talked about in the way that he is. And, look, as forgetting any of that, it's brilliant, but somebody has got the opportunity. Hopefully they will do well, score a bag full of goals for us as well, and just have a really good career. As you say, he's a development player as well. I think we need to keep a bit of perspective with that side as well. But fantastic. It's all the other parts as well. The fact he's come over from the Ivory Coast is a fantastic story. And good luck to him.
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron, the guys have mentioned it there. Sort of the buzz around the signing for a player who, as I said, is like to come as a B team player. Even in the summer, after a half an hour cameo, I mean, there was just a real buzz around the internet, and a real good way to kickstart Saturday as well.
Yeah, and you kind of see the numbers and read and look at the videos of his highlights and stuff. The numbers he's got at whatever level of football you're playing to score that amount of goals in that amount of games there's clearly a talent that is bigger than the league he's in. I think, like we said, we need to keep expectations a little bit sensible. Let's not expect him to maybe come in and start at Burton and go and score 10 goals at the end of the season in League One. But the talent that we've seen so far, and we've not seen a lot of it, and it has been at a lower league, but the talent that we have seen suggests that he's got a pretty good chance of making it in professional football, if not at kind of the level we're at. And yeah, the story is the other thing, and obviously we spoke about some of that, and coming from being homeless to now playing professional football in England, he's kind of got everything you want the guy to succeed, whether you support Wickham or not. And most people have kind of seen the articles on Twitter and stuff this week, like Cole U fans, for example, who are not our biggest fans, but he kind of had a bit of a trial there, and they're kind of saying, "Oh shit, we wish we'd signed him up," and maybe one that slipped away. Yeah, but yeah, anyone to get those numbers in whatever league. I go and watch non-league sometimes, and you see players that have maybe gone from step 5 to step 2 or 3 because they've got those kind of numbers, and then they go on and do it. And why can you not go a couple more higher and have a good career at this level?
Mm-hmm. We've mentioned sort of his sexuality, Jaden, and it not being the main talking point, but actually rather fitting that, given Bloomfield was the first player to sign the FA Charter for football against homophobia, pretty fitting and brilliant that Wickham are likely going to be the club to make that step.
Yeah, it's obviously it's a very good story, and it's very good for football as well. I agree that sexuality shouldn't be the main talking point, because you can be who you want without being judged, and you should be, like, because we're going to support Kone no matter what. So obviously it's a nice story, and I believe is he the first openly gay player in the Football League if he makes his debut?
If he makes his debut, he'll be the first to play. Yeah. I think Luke Daniels of Blackpool has already come out. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. But he'll be the first to actually play football. Yeah. Right. Okay. That makes sense. Yeah. Obviously, it's a nice story, and he's definitely not had an easy life growing up, and to come over here, bag a load of goals at non-league level, and then get his big move, which he rightfully deserves. It's just the perfect story, and I really hope it works out for him here. And well, obviously Bloom sees him as maybe the long-term option for a striker for us for years to come. Maybe he could go on to sell him, or he could come on to be a club legend. So you don't really know what's around the corner, and we don't really know what's around the corner in the present as well, whether he's going to be dev squad player, go straight out on loan, or we maybe will see him a little bit in the first team. I really couldn't tell you, but I'm really happy we finally got him, because, like Aaron said, you've got to be very good to score that amount of goals at any level, like, if you know where the net is. And I've never seen such hype around what's supposed to be a development player ever since he scored that goal it was like a ridiculous angle on his debut against Aldershot when he scored some mad goal. And I've never seen so much hype. So to get it over the line as well is it's really good finally, because it all went a bit quiet for a while, but now we've got him. I think we'll see what he can do, and hopefully he'll be our long-term successor up top.
He's going to start on Saturday, isn't he?
There was a point on Twitter earlier, to be fair, that someone made. I can't remember who made it, but someone said that basically that we've obviously been trying to sign him kind of since the summer of his trial, and obviously work permits, and there's been a lot of rumours about what held it up and whether it was work permits, fees, or whatever. But to kind of pursue him for 6 months, and for the club to have clearly put quite a bit into wanting to sign him and making it happen, clearly shows that Bloomfield or whoever's kind of picked him up, scouted him, clearly believes that he's got a very good chance to put that much effort into it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it just about wraps that up as well. Again, I think we're all buzzing to to see him in action, and hopefully it's not too long before we do so, because obviously the talent is there, and hopefully he's got a long and successful career at Wycombe. Let's very quickly talk about New Year's resolutions then, both just genuine ones and then football ones. Let's come to you first, Aaron.
I'm going to sound bad by saying I haven't got a clue. Honestly, like I would have said not drink, but then my birthday yesterday, so I had a couple, and then I went back to work today and I thought, do you know what? 2 days, let's just behave. And after I was like, fuck this, I've had enough. I'm going down the pub. So I was there by 4 o'clock. It's about the fourth one of the day. So general ones, no. Football ones, maybe. I don't know. I would say as a group, we're quite positive compared to a lot of our fans, but maybe I know sometimes our predictions were like, we're getting battered 3-0. And I think looking at predictions for the Rovers game, there was like, I think, was it 2 of us at the group chat that said we were going to win, and most people were going like 1, 2, 3-0, just a list of. So yeah, maybe a bit more faith in the, especially after what we saw the other day, that the team can achieve, and a bit more positivity. Yeah.
Any resolutions from you, Jaden?
Taking up darts, becoming the next Luke Littler. I think that's on the that's on the cards for me. Gonna get a dartboard on that wall back there, and just throw some darts until I qualify for a major tournament. So I might be there a while. But yeah, that's my main resolution. My footballing resolution. Like again, I'm quite positive. I used to be very negative, but I've sort of learned to deal with the pain of supporting Wycombe Wanderers. So I don't really know about football, maybe yeah, come back to me in a couple of weeks. I'll have to have a think.
Kyle's has got to be something to do with not criticising the ref every game, or not calling him out every game.
It's difficult when it's justified, though, isn't it?
It is after the other day, yeah.
Oh, no, I'll tell you what, I got mine. The lino on the left-hand side at Adams Park is always a prick, so I'm going to try and not take it out on him as much anymore when I come to Adams Park.
Not just because he's the one nearest.
Yeah.
The other one's all right.
I asked him if he'd give me his flag at the end of the game, and he said no. Prick. Against Port Vale. I was a big fan of what you're doing, mate. He just looked at me and shook his head.
Yeah, sure you are. Anything from you, Kyle, resolution-wise?
Get laid more.
Fuck's sake. Going down here again,
Did you hear that? I've got to work on it with her a bit more. Football-wise, I don't know. Probably.
Adams Park?
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely. Carlisle away in April. That's the one that's the one I want to tick off. I've never been able to tick off Brunton Park, and
I want it, but before, yeah, we'll see.
Exeter to Carlisle. Oh, it's going to be a long day for me, but I'll do it.
There's got to be a stopover in it for that.
Yeah, no, I definitely will be stopping over for that. Definitely.
You'd be better off, mate, flying. I think you can.
Yeah, I might fly.
Can you fly to Manchester
from Exeter?
From Exeter still?
I don't know. I have to do my research. I know you can fly London, but that's not worth it. So
because you could go to Bristol because my Mark went when Charlton played them. He flew up. He flew up to Glasgow.
Yeah.
Went down to Carlisle because it's like an hour, and then he got a train back up to Edinburgh and got a flight back to Bristol.
That's not too bad.
And it was cheap. And it was cheaper than a train return.
Really? I think you can fly to Newcastle from Exeter, so that'll be all right. And then just get train from Newcastle, Carlisle.
Yeah, I think it's about an hour and a half across.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
Night out.
I'll do my research.
Imagine that after the game. In Carlisle.
Getting pissed up on a plane before Carlisle away.
I've got to say, I'm looking at the idea of a gym membership. I'm not sure how long that's going to last, but that's the box standard one. And then my football resolution is probably the opposite of Aaron's. I want to get in the pub more before games because I sort of turn up to every single game 5-10 minutes late, no matter where it is. So my resolution is to get there early and get in the pub some more. I might enjoy it a bit more if I had a few drinks as well.
Yeah, I have to come in the Veer and have a drink with all the other cheerful, positive, lovely Wycombe fans that we have on a.
Let's face it, mate. You got to be half pissed to watch Wickham to really enjoy it anyway.
Join your co-hosts for a night out.
In Carlisle.
Yeah,
In Carlisle,
Are we inviting DJ this time after the last one?
Oh God.
Yeah, it's gone quiet, hasn't
The Ainsworth mask.
Right, let's very quickly talk about this weekend then. Obviously, we've mentioned it before, Alan, but if Wickham don't go and get a result this weekend, then sort of the Rovers win is, not pointless, but
not pointless. But I think it's back to a lot of questions. I mean, there's obviously still questions to be answered, and there's still a lot to work on. But go up there and kind of an extra performance, then we're back to square one pretty much. And like, is it just that Rovers can never beat us, and we just have that thing of beating them? Or what, I don't know. But yeah, we need to go and back it up. I think we actually will. I think that there's got to be a lot more confidence in them after that. You saw particularly kind of the second and third goal, the celebration of the players, it looked like they kind of a lot of frustration come out and a lot of it had been a while for that moment kind of thing.
It's like a weight had been lifted, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Like. And I think that'll help because like the Orient game and the reaction at the end, that's got to, however professional you are and however prepared you are for a game, that's got to be in the back of your mind to a point. Like, if I make a fuck up here, I've got this lot on my back kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, hopefully we'll go and back it up. I think we will. I'll go with 2-0 win. Hopefully, I think we're defensively we're good at the moment. Like we said about Max, keep clean sheets. Yeah, 2-0.
Mm-hmm. Momentum, Jaden, is a beautiful thing. And, regardless of Wickham's form, when you've won a game and you're looking to go and back it up, I think Burton away is one of the more favourable fixtures in the league, really. And surely after Monday's performance, you'd fancy Wickham to go and do it again.
Yeah, I mean, Burton weren't particularly good when we played at home. Obviously, it'd be a bit of a different kettle of fish, like it was last year with Burton when we beat them 3-0 at home and then lost 2-1 away. But yeah, it's always going to be a difficult game going away. They're sort of down the bottom of the table as well with us scrapping away. So it's going to be an interesting one. And obviously we need to build on the Bristol Rovers performance and result. We're going to be without Josh. We're going to be without Matt on the touchline as well because he's touchline banned. So be interesting to see what sort of effect that has on the boys. But I think if we sort of stick to our guns, don't do any of this stupid Exeter stuff where we start Keogh, Grimmer and Jacobson in the back three. If we stick to our guns, do what we've been doing, hopefully all our players are fit. And I could see us maybe grinding out a 1 or 2-0 win. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one. And hopefully we can... it can be the real turning point for our season because, obviously people are seeing it's 1 win in 13, but it's only 1 defeat in the last 5 as well, which we need to be honest, that's fairly decent. I know 3 of them have been draws, but we've stopped the losing run and we just need to go there, play what we played against Bristol Rovers, and hopefully we'll get the 3 points.
Kyle, is it all about sticking with the 4-4-2 on Saturday and building up momentum from there?
Yeah, I think you got the formation right. Back to basic. It works a treat. You might have to do a little bit of tinker, but I guess not with the formation, more the lineup. Maybe Wheeler will start in midfield alongside Potts, something like that. I'm not entirely sure. It also depends on who's out, who's in, who's going to be in the squad or not. I think it's going to be. I've got to be honest, I think it's going to be a really, really brutal game. I've read a lot of reports from Burton, and apparently they are monsters. Just proper, going back to our days of getting stuck in, long balls, getting right into you. They're not going to be an easy team to break down. And my worry in that game is if we fall behind, if we can break them down or not, because I think they're just going to put every man back and sit on the lead. That being said, I think we'll win. I don't think they'll be in it, so I reckon we'll probably win 1-0.
And last but not least, then that just leaves your prediction, Jaden.
Oh, I forgot my prediction, didn't I? I think a tight game. I could see a scrappy 1-0 Wickham win, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it go either way. Maybe even a 1-0 Burton or a 0-0 draw. But I'll go optimistic 1-0 Wickham. Jolo header, 89th minute.
was going to say, I'm going to agree with all of you and go for a Wickham win as well. I think keep that
Richard
momentum
Kane
going.
off the bench, 1-0.
Do we think he'll be on the bench? Do we think he'll get some game time on Saturday?
I think he's got a chance with maybe a couple of other players like Josh out. There's a couple of spaces that maybe wouldn't normally be as up the grabs. So, yeah, I think it's been training us for a while. You know, he's got a bit of a chance of getting on the bench.
I don't know if I'm reading into squad numbers too much, but 24 is relatively low, isn't it? And that's sort of suggestive of like someone who maybe will be in and around the fringes of the first team.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm reading into that too much, but obviously Adam Leathers was 24 recently, and he was nowhere near the first team, so maybe that's meaningless, but we'll see. I'd like to see him on the bench, maybe. Like I said in the group chat, the worst he can do is come on for a few minutes, run around, cause a bit of havoc if he's on the bench. So, yeah, maybe.
Got the Silly Cup game coming up as well. I think he's got a fairly good chance of possibly getting a start, if not at least making it off the bench on that game.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent. Well, I think that just about wraps it up then. Another really good evening, numbers-wise and sort of content-wise. Another really enjoyable recording. Thank you, as always, to Aaron, Jaden and Carl for joining me. Thank you to Chris as well, who had to leave us halfway through to attend to his children. But yeah, again, thank you very much. We'll be back next Thursday because we're not going to bother with a pizza game on Sunday. So that's your lot. Thank you very much for watching, and we will see you very soon.
Cheers, Abe.